When it's on.
All right. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hello. This is Mr. John Dewalskin with Brett Swarts here.
What's
I'm
up,
pronouncing
Brett?
I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. I always mess that up, John.
It's all right. Most people do.
So we are here today. We're on our regularly scheduled program every Friday. We're doing some commercial real estate training, and we are talking all things kind of commercial real estate. We're both
Yeah.
brokers, and both have been in the business a long time, have an extensive background in commercial real estate. So we're just going to be talking about a little bit about the brokerage industry, a little bit about the marketplace,
Yeah.
and ways to brokers can add value and grow their business in today's market. So, John, what do you think is the biggest obstacle facing commercial brokers in today's market?
I think the biggest obstacle is consistency of execution. I think I think the market is saturated with a lot of brokers, a lot of agents, and staying consistent, especially once your pipeline starts to get to a flush point with execution of prospecting metrics every day is really challenging, right? Because in the business, you're pulled in so many directions on a daily basis. And so however you plan a day, in many cases, the day gets away with you because a deal blows up, a deal dies. You have to work on something from the outside in. It looks like it would take 1 minute, but it really takes 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 hours or 6 hours. And it can be very mentally taxing. But getting back to center and figuring out how to execute consistently is what is a huge differentiator. Huge.
Yeah, I have a thing that I picked up from somewhere. I don't know who, but maybe a few things together. And I call it the kind of the success fulfillment formula. And
Uh-huh.
it's using your highest and best gift, whatever that strength is, and let's apply it to commercial real estate, right? So is it attracting? Is it the presentation? Is it the underwriting? Is it the building of the systems? Like, what is it that's your highest and best gift to move your business forward? That's identifying that and what you're strongest at. Times maximizing the potential of that gift, right?
Yeah.
Times the number of people you can impact, right?
Love
All
it.
of that will equal the fulfillment and the success, right? But I think it's when we're not in our lanes, or like you're saying, we're not doing the necessary things like
Yeah.
cold calling or the prospecting, or getting enough of the meetings and doing the metrics there that the business can become stagnant. Is that a fair
Yeah.
summary? What do you think about that?
Well, I love what you're talking about. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is Tony Robbins. Success without fulfillment equals failure. I mean, I think everything, the foundation of everything, is fulfillment, and I think to be in the commercial real estate business, I think you have to be fulfilled. It's got to be something that fulfills you because it's too hard. From the outside looking in, there's so many people that I've seen get into the business, and no matter how many times you tell them how difficult it is, they don't get it until they're like 3, 4, 5, 6 months in, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is really, really hard." And so you've got to be fulfilled. One of the questions I always used to ask when I was interviewing people, because I was a broker for 6 years and then I ran an office for 6 years, was on a scale from 1 to 10, how badly do you want to be in the business? And what I found was if they answered anything less than 9 or 10, it didn't typically work out because that passion, that fulfillment, that inner drive had to come from something deeper than they could even really know that they could connect with.
I really resonate with that, right? Because I remember when
Yeah.
I got in the business the first time, and I was 10, 11, 12. Like, I was like, I love and want to succeed in the business of commercial real estate brokers, like everything about it. I loved underwriting. I love the financing part. I love the competition. I love the challenge. I love the properties themselves, and the architecture, and the understanding the tenants and the rent rolls. I mean, like I couldn't get enough of it. Like, as a new person, I'm like, whatever, like, let's go, right? I want to learn. I want to learn. So I think that's really powerful to think
Yeah.
about on a scale from 1 to 10, asking yourself, how badly do you want to be in the
Yeah.
business? Right. And if that inner drive is not there, I also think about sports, right?
Yeah.
Growing up, there was a difference between the high school player and the college player, right? And I'm sure there's a difference between a college and the pro player, where I had the fortune to be able to play in college on scholarship, but not my first year. I was a walk on, right? So I came out of high school, 6 foot white guy, who could shoot and pass and play, and I walked on, and it was tough, right? But I made the traveling team. I was one of 10 players to actually travel with the team, and this is at Point Loma in San Diego. But I was just growing and learning, and my game was getting better and better because I had great competition,
Yeah.
people that were better than me, and so that leveled me up to go to a junior college, and then I had a chance to win the scholarship, right? Earn the scholarship. So I think there's a lot of correlation between, let's even say sports from, let's say, high school to college to pro, or even like commercial real estate. It really felt like I was in the pros when I
Yeah.
was at Marcus and Millichap.
When you talk about the pros, if we just stick on the whole idea of, pros, athletics, athletes, and to me, when I hear you talk, I think about fundamentals. If you just go back and you look at a guy like Larry Bird, who is not a natural athlete but fundamentally sound, worked on his fundamentals day in, day out. Somebody asked me yesterday, I was actually a guest on a podcast, and they said, if you could have dinner with anyone who's living, who would it be? And I said, Michael Jordan, because I would just want to talk to him about the fundamentals of everything, right? The fundamentals of practice, athletics, life, and just because to me, he really defined fundamentals. I mean, we can point to a lot of people, and people may judge that I'm not saying someone that's like so, whatever, culturally, whatever, but I mean, or political, I mean, but to me, life is about fundamentals. Life is about showing up. There's, the Michael Jordan commercials that they show now. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than mastering fundamentals on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're talking commercial real estate, but that applies to anything, any business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you be more fundamentally solid than the next person? Can you show up an hour or two before practice starts, before the day starts, right? And so, I mean, everything I study and read and have admired about Michael Jordan, he does that, right? And I don't know about every element of his life, but the part that I'm privy to.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I think, fulfillment, execution, passion, drive, to be a successful in any business, but I know we're talking commercial real estate,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to be disciplined to the hour, to the minute to make it in this business, to really, really make it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about that. What do you think's some of the key fundamentals? Maybe we can touch on one. We could touch on cold calling. We could touch on, closing for the meeting, right?
Yeah.
We could touch on the listing presentation. We could touch on even conditional close. Man, that might be a good one, right? The conditional close, right,
Yeah.
John? So what is the conditional close, John? And how did that help you in your business?
Yeah, the conditional close is a really hard one, and I think it takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill, a lot of role playing to really get good at it because it's so uncomfortable initially until it's not, and once it's not, you realize how beneficial it really is. And that conditional close is, that thing you say at the end where it's, hey Brett, if we can agree on price and terms, is there any reason that you wouldn't want to do business with myself and my company? And typically 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, the person will say, well, yeah, because of this. And so then what to kind of touch on. All right, I understand, that's, and then you kind of dive into that issue, and then you kind of solve that issue, at least in conversation, or what the next step would be, and say, if we can resolve that, is there another reason maybe you want do business with myself or my company? And if they say no, if we can resolve that, we're a go, And so I think that is, those are really, really difficult things to do because they require a lot of courage and confidence. And you got to really know what you're doing, because you got to be ready. Here's the vulnerable part. You got to be ready for someone to come back and say, I wouldn't do business because of this. And then you have to be ready to discuss that, right? To dive into it, to question it, to disagree with it, to know what the next step is to solve it.
So much wisdom there. I'm writing down some notes here, and I want to touch on that, right? Because I remember, learning about this, And yes, assuming we can agree on price and terms, is there any reason you wouldn't, exclusively list the property with me and
Yeah.
my company or do business with me, right? And it's scary because you met this person for the first time, perhaps, right? This is typically after a cold
Right.
call. You set a meeting, you've gone through, you built some rapport, you've uncovered some needs and some challenges, right? You've talked about perhaps your track record,
Right.
and now it's gaining towards the end of the meeting, right? And you're looking to see if a proposal is warranted to do a full pricing and financial analysis
Right.
to again try to solve or the challenges that they're facing, as well as get an actual price of what the property's worth. And this is like the kind of like the grand crescendo, right? It's the last thing that you want to say to really hone in on about where you're at. It's almost like
Correct.
you're testing, right? You're throwing it out there, you're throwing the net out, and you're saying,
Right.
are they really digging this? Or are they just meeting with me and want this
Right.
meeting to be over, right? So you ask that question, and then they say the thing, right? Well, what is your fee? Or
Right.
well, I'm talking with somebody else. Or actually, my brother-in-law, he's a broker,
Right.
and the whatever the thing that is in the back of their mind from saying yes, typically they'll tell you, right? And
Right.
then it's okay. Let's talk about that and let's unflesh that a little bit. John, did I miss anything there, or what else would you add to that?
Well, I think the reason they'll tell you is because you're raising the consciousness of the meeting at that point. If you've done everything right, and it's not a perfect science, but if you've done everything right and you're putting yourself in that vulnerable of a state, then the person will most likely be vulnerable with you. And so I think a lot of times people don't talk about, people will teach that, but they don't talk about the energy behind it. Right. So the energy behind it is, this is something that, like, I'm really putting myself out there. Right. I'm raising the frequency. I'm raising the vibration. I'm raising the level of consciousness of this discussion right now. And I'm getting deeper. And that to me is the essence of the quote unquote conditional close.
Mhm.
Right. So I've been studying that since I was, 18 years old, when my dad, got me into all of these tapes and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And so, and listening and studying all of these people, from Brian Tracy to Tony Robbins to Jim Rohn to, you name them. I could name tons of others, but but nobody I've ever heard anybody really talks about that. That's a vulnerable state to get to, right?
Mhm.
If I can ask that with the right tone, the right cadence, and I've done things right, that kind of is a simulation of if I've done everything right up into that point.
Mhm.
If they won't open up to me, then I have to look back and say, okay, where did I not build the relationship capital along the way for them to be real and honest with me?
Mhm.
Right. So that's a very defining moment. I
So
think.
let's role play now, right? Let's bring this home for folks, right? You ready, John? You want to be the buyer or the seller? Or you want to be the seller or the agent? What do you want to be?
I'll be the seller. Sure.
Okay, so you're the seller. All right. So we sat down, we built some rapport already. I've uncovered some of the needs. John is considering listing his property, right? And I've come to kind of the end of the meeting. So John, assuming we can agree on price and terms, is there any reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property with you, for you, and sell this and do a great job and meet all of the things we just talked about?
Yeah. I just need to decide if I ultimately want to hold on to the asset over the next, year or so. And it really depends on if I think I can just sell it myself.
So you're still considering whether or not you're going to sell, and if I'm hearing you right, and whether or not it might be a good idea to list it yourself. Is that a fair summary?
Correct.
So, what do you mean by list it yourself? Could you or sell it yourself? What is
Yeah,
what does that
put it on LoopNet.
Yeah, just you could buy that thing right for about $120. Put it on LoopNet and see what happens. The market is pretty hot, So what is your experience with that, or have you done that in the past?
Yeah. No, I have not.
So it'll be the first time. Okay. So the question I have for that is do you think competition can really help you get a higher price? In other words, here at XYZ company and what I do, one of my passions, John, is creating competition and getting people to bid up your property, your deal. So is there do you think you might be missing a chance to get more competition if I can bring every single buyer who's bought in the past that I've talked with, and by the way, I've done my homework. I know these people, I've closed with them, right? These relationships, do you see how that might be able to outlast just putting on LoopNet?
Yeah, probably.
So if I could come back to you and show you that, by the way, I don't want to just tell you that. I want to show you my track record. I want to show you our marketing effort. I want to show you the entire plan in our second meeting. And if I could resolve and overcome the thought of you, doing it yourself. And by the way, if I come back and you feel like you can do it yourself, I'll respectfully say, great, list it, go for it. And I'll give you a high five, you get that price. But if I come back and show you in our second meeting to your satisfaction that our marketing plan will do X, Y, Z, get you a higher price, better terms, more competition for your deal, is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list your property?
Nope. I think it's pretty great.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to set a proposal. I'm going to do it in 2 weeks. I'm going to do a full detailed analysis, rent comps, sales comps, everything. We'll meet back here in 2 weeks and I'll present that to you. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Perfect. Sounds great. Good job.
Any feedback?
I just want to highlight the cadence of keep going, right? I think a lot of times people, they fumble, they sound hesitant, they don't know what to do. It's like that's one of the reasons that role playing and practicing is so important, because you just want to keep on going and you want to have the confidence, because when you do that in real life, the person's looking over you, looking at you, and you're interpreting what their stare means versus what it really means. Your insecurities come out, you're fumbling. It's practicing to kind of get through that, which is so important. And I know we're talking about commercial real estate right now, but it's really any field. You have to just keep on going. I have a question for you, Brad, because we're talking about commercial real estate. There's all of this stuff going on right now with Biden talking about, the $42 billion fix of potentially getting rid of 1031s. That is going to have a massive ripple effect in the industry if that happens. And so maybe talk a little bit about, what you do and how you do it, where it can really help people in the commercial space, when they don't have the option, assuming things happen, if they don't have the option of a 1031, or even if the 1031 option still exists, what can you do for people? Because what you do is pretty interesting.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so we do offer an alternative or a backup plan for a failed 1031 exchange called a deferred sales trust. And what's interesting with Biden's proposal, it's tied to IRC 1031, which is a part of a tax code. And it's the tax code that we use for deferrals, IRC 453, which is completely separate. So it's not on the proposal to be taken away. And I do think that if they do limit the 1031 exchange to essentially $500,000 per person, right? If it's a married couple, potentially $1 million. There's a couple other iterations of that. And if you're making this, other things that are going on. But if that gets taken away, we believe the deferred sales trust is already, we think it's the best deal in town, because the 3 storms that are going on, John. So the first storm is the Biden proposal of taking it away or limiting it, right? The second part of that storm with Biden is they're actually taking it from 20 to 40%, right? For federal. That's also the proposal. So you're looking at, let's say California, 30 to 50% capital gains tax depreciation recapture, going to 50 to 70. So it's commercial brokers, we need to be able to solve problems. And one of the biggest problems is always, well, what's my up leg? What's my next opportunity? Go find me that deal that makes sense, and then I'll list and sell with you. Because why? Of this capital gains tax and depreciation recapture. So if you can't solve for that big expense, guess what? They're not probably going to list or sell with you. So with the deferred sales trust, we solve that right away. We don't have to use a 1031. We have no timing restrictions, right? You can essentially sell high and buy low. And the best deal we have for that, we just helped a client. We saved their failed 1031 exchange. They sold about an $8 million deal on the beach, and they had zero basis, and they'd owned it for 25 years, and they are even longer than that. I think it was about 30 years, fully depreciated, and they had about a $2.6 million liability. And so instead of selling and not having a 1031, they used the deferred sales trust. So yeah, that's what we do.
It's great. I love it. And what do you? And why do people sometimes not know about this option, and B, because maybe they don't understand it, don't pick up the phone and just call about it?
Yeah, I think it's two things, right? By the way, I learned about it at Marcus and Millichap in 2010. So at 1.9, I didn't know about it. And then my manager brought in my business partner to speak about it. And then all of a sudden I knew about it. But even then, that was over, 11 plus years ago. It takes a while to get the false belief of people actually doing it, right? So it's one thing
Uh-huh.
to see 1031 exchanges happen every single day. And I'm like, oh, he did it, I can do it. My mentor did it, I can do it. My office, we're always doing it. So it's just a foregone conclusion that it's the way to do it, right? It's kind of like Blockbuster, right? You never thought 10 years ago that you couldn't rent a movie from a store, right? And then all of a
Right.
sudden Netflix came out, and there's people who were like, oh, what's this Netflix? I'm not doing that in the mail or online. But now it's the foregone conclusion that everyone has Netflix and they use Netflix. So that's where I feel the deferred sales trust. It's just there's only a few people that are actually doing the deals. And until you see someone actually doing the deals, I think we closed 6 or 7 in April alone, and then we closed a couple this month in May, and then we're closing another like 5 or 6. And so as I'm doing these deals and training brokers on how to do it, the false belief of it can't work kind of falls apart because these are the deals that are happening. I think there's over 2 billion collectively last year that are closed for DST transactions across the nation, thousands, billions. I think part of it is the 1031 exchange companies don't want you to know about it, right? They want to beat the drum of the 1031. Part of it, the commercial real estate broker houses, I think part of it is they're in the business of doing 1031 exchanges for clients to get more transactions, to be really honest, right? In fact, my Marcus and Millichap broker who brought him in, he was fired a couple years later because the market crashed and everything was tough. The new guy who came in didn't want me talking about it. And so it was this weird part because they were like, it's getting meetings and I'm getting listings. So they see it as potentially like taking away from business, but it's just the opposite. You end
Yeah.
up getting more deals. Like I have a listing right now that they would not be selling if it wasn't for the deferred sales trust, right?
Yeah.
Like literally they get calls 3 brokers a week. It's a beautiful property, B plus location. So I think that's really the answer, John.
Yeah.
Until they have someone they can trust and know to guide them through it, they're not gonna want to touch it because it's just out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, again, I think, I think this is actually a good topic to end on. One of the most important things in any business, especially real estate, is spending a minimum of 5 minutes a day researching and studying your craft and your skill set and growing your skill set. Doing research, whether it's reading, listening to a podcast, reading an article, listening to, the list goes on and on, reading a book, reading a magazine, excuse me, reading anything is so important. And so we really, really have to commit everybody to the growth of knowledge, because knowledge, I really do believe, is power. And being able to educate somebody on, all, 3, 4, 5, 10 indicators that you're seeing in the marketplace based on list publication, list someone you talk to, et cetera, really positions you as an authority figure to be known in the business.
Yeah, and the last thought I'll have too is we are also taught to not play the principal, right? As a commercial real estate broker, it's for your client to make the decision on selling or accepting the prices, right? You're here to present the options and solutions to their challenges, whether that be like a reverse 1031 exchange, whether that be an opportunity zone, whether it be a charitable remainder trust or a Delaware statutory trust or a deferred sales trust, right? It's not your job to be the CPA attorney playing principal. Say, hey, here's a potential option. Hey, I'm not a CPA tax attorney. But there are some really smart people who are closing these.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is a solution. And if they say yes to that, guess what? You provided that connection. They're more likely to list and sell with you, which ultimately is what, as a commercial real estate broker, you want to be doing.
I love it. This was great.
By the way, John is my coach for anyone listening to this, and he's my personal coach, and he's amazing. So you can go to Think Business or johndoaskin.com.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing this every Friday, having some fun. And so please rate, review, subscribe to our YouTube channels.
Yeah.
Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com.
Thanks,
and then,
brother.
John, where people can find you?
JohnDwoskin.com. Everything's there. Everything's everything to do with
crazy spelling. DWOSKIN.
I don't know if it's that crazy.
John, by the way, no H, so JON.
Yes,
you might be listening to this on not seeing the video.
Thank you, Brett. Yeah. This was great. Thanks, man. I always enjoy talking with you. I love the service that you're bringing because it's It's not as well known as it probably should be in the ears and minds, but it needs that exposure so people have that option. And I know you're helping a ton of people. So good work. Thanks for everything you do. And thanks, everybody. If Brett can help you, he gave you all the contact information for both of us. And that's it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
See you
Brett.
next week, sir.
Fun doing it with you.
Okay. Bye now.
Talk to you.